Welcome. I'm Stephanie Banky, your host, and this is Conversations That Connect, a discussion series where we bring together some of the folks who are moving our industry forward. I'm so excited because joining me today is Tim Hayes, an award-winning CIO who's known for his innovations and implementing Guidewire. And today he's the VP of Customer Engagement at NTT DATA. Thank you so much for joining me, Tim.
Well, hey, Stephanie, thanks for having me on your program. It's great to see you again.
I think we have shared this stage more times than I can count at Guidewire and other areas. And again, specifically for the innovation work that you've done over the years. And as I think about that, I think about how hard we've all worked on improving the customer experience, but I feel like we still haven't really created a delightful experience for customers. What do you
Well,
think we need to do to achieve that?
Stephanie, I think part of it is that as we keep working on it, but the baseline for what good looks like continues to move as well. We are judged by the last best experience that someone had, regardless of the platform. There's a lot that's been written about this idea of experience, but recently a book that has grabbed my attention is Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guida. And in it, he describes this idea that being good at, in this case, a restaurant and food wasn't enough to really set that restaurant apart. And a series of stories that describe moving the experience from a transactional experience to one that delights. And I love the metric that he uses that says we should spend 95% of our time thinking about the cost effective operation of our organization, our business, but 5% of the time and effort should be spent on going above and beyond and over the top. So we have this shifting landscape of what it means to be good. And in our industry, I still think we fall short often of a transactional experience rather than a delightful experience.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think about how much money we have invested. I mean, as an industry, we've invested, billions of dollars in digital transformation over the last 2 decades. And again, yet customers still aren't sort of dazzled by the service. Why do you think we've fallen short there?
Well, first of it, it's the investment in it. I think there's been a lot of cost pressure in this industry over the past years. We're working on those things, and we have to do the investment in the experience simultaneously. There are other pressures that are coming at us in terms of adoption of artificial intelligence, core systems adoption. Let's be honest, a lot of core systems and a lot of carriers are keeping them from providing the kinds of experiences that they would like to be able to offer. And without modifying that core underlying system, we're forced at layering other capabilities on top, and they may or may not interoperate efficiently, smoothly, or in a way that we like.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I recently saw a statistic that said 19% of insurance executives feel like they are hampered by their core platform. The legacy platforms are hampering them from really modernizing in a lot of areas. I guess I'm a little bit surprised that after, a couple of decades of modernization and transformation that we still find ourselves there. But these are really difficult systems to migrate. They're difficult to upgrade, and they're time consuming and costly, right? So,
Well, it's interesting debate. Should I make an investment in the core system? What advantages can artificial intelligence tools layer on to overcome the disadvantages of a legacy core system? Or do I need to double down on my investment in a core system to get that foundation laid correctly so that it's easier to lay these capabilities on top of our systems? For example, we want to be able to have an environment where we're asking our system questions. And we've spent a lot of time and money building a system of record. And I think we've spent less time building a system of insight that tells us exactly the kinds of things that are happening in the organization, information at our fingertips, and certainly less capabilities in measuring customer sentiment than what we might like in order to get to that what is a delightful experience.
Yep. That that raises for me sort of, as a CIO, was there a moment, whether it was a customer interaction or even a system upgrade, where you started to look at the customer experience a little bit differently?
Well, I came at it with a different lens when I joined the insurance company a few years ago. And I honestly said, Stephanie, wow, we make this hard. We make this hard for ourselves. We make it hard for our customers. And there must be easier ways to get these things done. Sending a printed document to someone that says, I need you to fill this form out, isn't a delightful experience, and something that I have to do. And I looked at that under the lens of, okay, we're going to do a core systems modernization and transition, but it's not going to be sufficient to just do core systems modernization. We need to also think about being able to see the data in terms of a system of insight, but we also need to be able to change that customer experience at the same time. So in the future, the core system should have enabled the idea that I don't send you a document anymore. That's not delightful. I send you a text link with information that I need to collect from you, allow you to take a photograph of the information I'm attempting to collect and bring it back in a kind of a friction-free, not much of a disruption. Anybody can handle this kind of experience.
Yeah. It's funny. I was talking to a friend recently who was in an accident, and in the state of Massachusetts, there's a form you have to fill out that your insurance carrier will send to you, but then you send to the DMV, the RMV in Massachusetts. He's like, so I get this form, and then I have to find a place to print it, and I had to fill it out with a pen, like, write out my answers, and then I had to scan it to get it back into them. They wouldn't accept a photograph. Like I had to scan it, and I had to be, and you're right. This is just it's a lot of unnecessary process, probably, right? There were something like a link to a form or something could have been done more easily. I know some of those forms, we capture all the data as a carrier, and then the state wants it, but we don't pre-populate it, right? Like we go back out and capture it again. So I think there's tons of opportunity for us.
Well, there's a lot of things that we do that are just not delightful. We ask questions that we shouldn't ask today. One of my favorites is on an underwriting form, what's the shape of your roof? I don't know. It's kind of like this. I mean, what does that mean? First off, the carrier should have that information via consumer databases, or if we can't get it that way, or we need to validate it, a photograph is going to be far more telling than filling out a survey. You even think about it, Stephanie, when you call up your insurance company, one of the things they ask you is, what's your policy number? Well, you may or may not have that at your fingertips. You've been asked it before, but why do we even ask that question? Why don't we ask a question that they're likely to know? Hey, what's your phone number? And we can validate some information from there. So making a delightful experience involves being smart and not asking questions that we should already know the answer to.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember some early digitization work that I was doing, and we decided that we would gather photos at new business for property policies. And one of the things that we didn't do, to your point, we didn't really go back in and say, do I still need to ask these 10 other property related questions then? Because now I have a photograph. So to your point, I can see the roof. I can see if it's a home or a mobile home. Like there's a lot of information that I could gather from the photograph that I know don't need to ask anymore. And I'm hopeful now that AI is at a point where it can extract some of that information from a photograph and populate a database so that carriers do have the important and necessary information in data, right?
Absolutely. Well, we used to say that necessity is the mother of invention. I'm starting to think that laziness is the core invention for AI adoption. I know it's certainly been true in my case. I don't want to build that PowerPoint deck. How can I make that go away by using some creative prompts in AI, for example? And we need to leverage those same kinds of thinking as we work to improve the experience in insurance.
Yep. So I'm curious, if you were to walk into an insurer tomorrow, what metrics would have them, what would you maybe challenge a little bit differently? So metrics that maybe previously showed efficiencies, but now you want to put a customer focus on it. What comes to mind?
Well, you talk about efficiency. I want to talk about the appropriateness of the insurance that someone has. A metric that I want to use is, are my clients appropriately insured? When we look at what's happened in California and Colorado, where I live, are my insureds appropriately covered? Because we have found a lot of evidence that that hasn't always been the case. On auto coverages, we have $100,000 pickup trucks, right? If you have $100,000 property liability policy, that's not sufficient today. Two vehicles, you wreck two vehicles and you're upside down. So the first metric is I want to know, are we proactive with the client to help make sure that they're appropriately insured? It's good for them. It's good for us. It also starts to create that delightful engagement with the insured to say, I've got your back, and I want you to feel like I have your back. I have your back up front, and I will ultimately have your back if you need to use this insurance. And the second metric that I want to measure is, do we look like an efficient organization? It's like Will Rogers once said, I'm more than happy to pay my taxes as an American. I'm proud to pay my taxes as an American, but I would be just as proud at half the price. And I think that has to do with insurance too. It's almost often this necessary evil that I have to have it. I'm entering into this transaction as a have to have, not want to have, not desire to have. And can we change that sentiment in the relationship so it feels more consultative and less transactional, where I've created an environment where I am taking care of you as my client.
Yep. I love that. And we talk a lot about making insurance lovable. You and I have had these conversations, and I feel like that consultative approach really showcases what the industry can do when looking out for people is our number one priority, right? And
Oh, sorry.
oh, I was just saying, and then when you do, it's sometimes it's tough to build loyalty in a billing conversation, or tough to build loyalty if somebody's just changing an address. But if you're really consulting with somebody, I mean, I'm from California, as you know, and when we went through, as we go through the wildfires, really every season, there's always a horrible news item on how many people are underinsured or didn't understand what contents coverage was, or why they had the minimum of a certain coverage. And to your point, costs are escalating everywhere. So if you rear end, one of those $100,000 trucks, you may not be appropriately covered, even though you've been insured for 20 years, right? And it really feels like maybe time to change the conversation.
Well, I'm really hoping that we can take advantage of a collision of tools and capabilities and core systems and a desire to change the kind of experience that people have. And it will show up in proactivity. When I say proactivity, I mean I'm helping to think ahead for you. If you have a question, I want to give you a knowledge base to be able to answer that question. But if you need to consume this service that you've purchased, I want to be proactive and help you. You've been involved in an accident. Is anyone hurt? Do you need a rental car? If you need a rental car, let me help you get that rental car set up. And then throughout that whole process, we communicate effectively in ways that we don't always do. I think we want to, but we're busy. We're busy just keeping our head above water. And this is where the tools have the advantage. They don't sleep. They don't phone in sick, and they can help us. Right? You have a claimant. They haven't used the rental car insurance. Should we proactively ask them, do you need a rental car? Have you actually, oh, by the way, your rental coverage is about to expire. What would you like to do about this situation? Here is an update on the status of your claim, even if there isn't an update. And we can create these capabilities where there's still a human in the loop, but where we help the adjuster and we help the underwriter by bringing them information to be proactive, to be able to say, here's the email I have created for this insured during this event. If this looks okay, hit send. Everything is streamlined in a way that we've made this whole process of insurance not just delightful for the insured or our client, but we've changed the relationship with our underwriter. We've changed the relationship with our adjuster by making them more efficient. And in our business, one of the number one questions that would come into customer service is, why'd my rate go up?
Mm.
And you would have to look across, well, let's see, was there a claim activity? Was there a change on the policy? What has happened? And you might have to log into three different, or at least have access to three different things. Whereas artificial intelligence should be able to answer that question rather quickly for us in a way that isn't, okay, let me do some research and get back to you. It's, I now have an instant answer for you. And then I have 5 suggestions. Here's 5 suggestions where we could impact the cost of your insurance. And that starts to create a better experience for our insureds that's enabled by the technology and the capabilities that are available to us right now.
Yeah, I feel like we're at this inflection point, right? Like in my, 38 years in the business, I have met folks who are so devoted to, again, creating great policyholder experiences and creating great products that protect people. And we went through a, big data phase, and then now we've been upgrading our core platforms. And I feel like we're at this inflection point with AI on top of that. We can take all of those experiences, those delightful experiences that you and I have been talking about, that we've wanted to create for years, but our underlying data wasn't always there, or the systems weren't always built to easily communicate with other systems, right? And so I feel like we're now at this place where I think AI is going to kind of tip us over the top. Do you see that similarly, or you have a different perspective on it?
No, I absolutely do, but I think it's going to also manifest itself in speeding everything up. Our IT transformation projects have been things of careers, not short time frames. I recently talked to an insurance company that spent 19 years migrating to a new policy system. That's not an IT project. That's a career, and we need to go much faster. And even the implementation of Guidewire that takes years potentially needs to be compacted so that we can do these, and we have the ability to do them much faster. But I agree. I think we are at a collision point between technology, not only from the perspective of how our insureds are going to work in with us and with our systems, but how people inside the organization will work as well.
Yeah. So if we were to fast forward 5 years and somebody is filing a claim, can you walk us through what sort of that ideal experience would be like?
Absolutely. I hope it doesn't take us 5 years because I think a lot of the tools are already here. But
Yeah.
in my mind, I see this kind of wonderful story arc where I had an accident in the in the parking lot. It's unfortunate, but I can immediately go to my insurance application and say, I need to file a claim. And interactively, it sends me a link that says, we need to take some photographs of your car. But first off, are you okay? Do you need any emergency services? Does anybody need to go to the hospital? I want to get that information immediately instead of after the fact. Then I already know about your car. Is it this car? Well, yes, it is. Well, I want to present a wireframe of that car on your camera phone and say, take some pictures. Okay, based on that picture, I'm going to need some additional pictures. Oh, it looks like there's some front end damage. Can you pop the hood and take a picture here? And based on all of those things, we can start to get an immediately fairly clear picture of what's going to happen with that car. Now, proactively, I want to get you into some transportation. I want to be able to take care of you in that moment. And as we've already started to digest the information of this claim, I want to make an immediate decision. Are we going to repair this car? Are we going to salvage this car? Because if we're not going to repair that car, I don't want to take that car to the tow yard and pay $200 a day for that car to sit there while I send an adjuster out there. I want to send it immediately to the salvage yard, and I want to immediately do a title settlement, a payoff settlement, get all that done. I mean, in the worst case scenario where we're not going to repair the car, that actually should be the fastest thing we settle. Here's the picture. All the airbags are popped on that car. It is not likely to be repaired. Take it to the salvage yard, immediately do this settlement, and then I can contact the insured and say, would you like me to put the money that we owe you in the account that you've been paying your monthly premium with? Well, yes, that would be delightful. Select one. Here you go. And 15 seconds later, you get a text message from your bank that you've received the funds that you're owed. Now, to me, that feels like the kind of an experience I would like to have, and I hope that we are all building towards that.
Yep. It sounds ideal. We talked a little bit in the beginning of some of the challenges in our industry, and I think some of that is because many of us, myself included, I've been doing this for 38 years, and I feel like I'm not always maybe seeing what is possible because there are things. It's just the way insurance is, right? It's complex, and it's just the way insurance is. What's one thing that you think we've accepted as an industry as just the way insurance is, that customers simply won't tolerate 5 years from now?
Well, I'm going to say there's probably two sides to that coin. I think as technology leaders, we often say that ERP or core systems implementations are too hard or too risky. I think that dialogue and that narrative needs to change to say, no, we can do these programs, and the last innovation of awards that we've received, I think, prove that you can, in fact, do this on a different level and a different time scale. But as far as the consumer experience, I go back to an original comment about don't ask dumb questions, right? Don't ask me to do things that require me to do things that I may not have. You mentioned filling out a form, going to a scanner, putting it in the mail. How many people actually do that today? We don't do that today. So I think asking people to do something like that will be unacceptable in the future.
Yep. Thank you for spending your time with us today. I have a couple of closing questions that I ask of every guest. Of everything that we talked about today, what would you want people watching this video to take away?
Well, one, I would say intentionality. We have to be intentional about creating delightful experiences for our clients, our customers, and we have to be intentional about creating delightful experiences for the people who operate inside of our insurance companies as well. If they are feeling delightful, if they're feeling like this is a great experience, they can also deliver a great experience to the insured. The second part of that is equal. We need to take away the busy work in our business so that we're not moving things from left to right on our desk or left to right on our screen, so that we're freed up to have the time to be able to create that delightful experience. And as we mentioned in the um, in the survey, the book Unreasonable Hospitality, we're going to spend a certain amount of our time doing that. And one of the follow up, Stephanie, that I heard about this, a guy read that book. He owns 4 UPS stores, and putting it into practice, he did something I think is outstanding. He gave every person in his store the opportunity to comp a customer once a day. You're going to show up to mail a package, and they're going to pick you out and say, "Today it's on me." Now
Wow.
think about the craziness of that idea and how much delight gets created. You expected to pay, and now you're not going to have to pay today. And the person behind the counter gets to say, I made somebody's day, and that makes me feel better. So looking for those opportunities to take normal, ordinary transactions and create a delightful experience.
Yeah, I love putting the focus on the employee, right? I mean, again, our industry employs so many of us, and I always feel like it's tough to give a really great customer interaction if I, as an employee, am struggling to find the data, struggling to find the time, struggling, right? And so I love that. I love shifting that focus to employees. If you could change one thing in our industry, what would it be?
We're inefficient from a capital perspective. We we don't have, or we haven't proven the ability to predict our exposures well enough so that we can adjust our prices to our customers quickly and appropriately, so that we are paying for exactly the risk that we're attempting to cover. If I could wave a magic wand, that actuarial prediction would be better. And that, I've heard an actuary tell me once that all models are wrong, some are useful. I would attempt to change that so that we can get to the value pricing of insurance, where an insured is paying exactly what they need to pay to cover exactly the risk that they have. If I could solve one thing that make us all love insurance more than we do, it would be that.
So, for those of you watching, we hope you enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for spending your time with me today, Tim. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Stephanie.